right, I'm recording this. So let's see if I can. No, that's not it. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me, but I just can't hear you. All right. Let me go back the other way. Hang on a second. It's all a new experience. This used to freak me out. And now I'm sort of in this, let's just say if I can. You can't hear me. Okay, I'm gonna go back over here. Can you hear me now? Yes? All right, I don't know. How come this is like this? All right, anyway. Okay, oh, I see you talking to me. Okay, cool. I never did it on my big computer for you before. This is the first time for me. I don't know why I can't hear you. It's really very frustrating. Here, let me see if I can turn, I wonder if I can turn two on at the same time. Probably not. Let's see. I'm looking at my, so is this better? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Well, that's okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. I don't know what happened.
But the sound is terrible. That has like.
I'm gonna leave this here. Hang on a second. I got it.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
don't
hear
know
me?
why. I'm having a problem with the computer, and on my iPad it works just fine. Go figure.
Oh, you switched to iPad. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how come. That's the case.
But for me, also interesting for some reason. Like sometimes it works with headphones. Sometimes it doesn't work with headphones. As far as.
Yeah. I don't actually understand this, but okay, whatever. We'll make it work. Anyway, hi. So
Hello.
nice to see you here, Julia.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know, right? Actually, it has been.
True.
Okay, so my intention today was to talk about the ABCs of intuition and also to talk about crystal energy. So with that in mind, oh, here they are. I thought I forgot to bring them with me. I'm a little loopy now. Things didn't go the way I wanted them to. All right, so what I wanted to start to talk about was like the why. So for me, I guess I always had this sense that I had this like angel sort of like following me. And so when I was really young, for those of you who don't know me, my mom passed away when I was 3. So I sort of always like had this feeling that there was like this energy like following me. I can't really describe it anything else but that, except for the fact that sometimes it didn't always feel like one particular energy. Like, you know how like you can have a group of people walk into a room and you don't necessarily see them, but you know, you have a sense of like who's there without actually seeing who's there. Like you get a sense it's a couple of people, it's 2 people, it's a bunch of people. And so for me, sometimes I really felt like there was just a single person. Sometimes I felt like there was a bunch of people. And even though I really couldn't put my finger on it and see it, it was just this like sense. And I remember like waking up like super early in the morning, you know, like when you wake up when you're little before you're supposed to actually get out of your room. Like my father used to say, okay, so like when the clock says 8, then, you know, you can like come out of your room and whatever.
Oh, really?
Before then, like you can like tiptoe to the bathroom and then go back in your room. Tell me this. So I So that's what I did. And I sort of like just like stayed in my room. And I remember it being like my favorite time. Like I used to go, I have this like wooden toy chest, and I used to go in my wooden toy chest and I would take out this like cape. I remember it was like very shiny. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she made costumes for the circus. And I'm not exactly sure which circus, but she did. And so she made this, like she had this like cape, and I think like no one wanted it. Like she made it and then no one wanted it. So she gave it to me. And I remember it being like this like sapphire blue and it gold and like shiny on it. So that's all I needed really. I mean, what else do you need when you're 5? You know, that. And so I remember putting that cape on and like standing on top of my toy chest and like basically like with my hands like orchestrating all of those like entities in my room and like actually talking to them, like having this like big old conversation to them. And as soon as I like could hear like somebody coming towards my door, like I would hear it, like the creaking in the wood, I quickly would take off my cape and scoot into my bed under my covers and like just pretend like I was reading a book, but I really wasn't. I wasn't doing any of those things. And I sort of remember like talking to them like when I was in the bathtub and like things like that when I was really, really little. Like when like make believe and pretend and all of that stuff was like part of like what you did. And then I don't know, like over the years you sort of forget all of those things. And I don't know, but I always had this sense that there was this like these entities that like sort of like were with me. But like, you know, then you get older and you sort of like talk yourself out of those things that you knew so clearly when you were younger, and logic steps in. And the thing about logic is, so some people could say, well, you know, you just grew up and so those things like were fanciful and they were this. But what if they weren't fanciful? What if that was like real? What if that was like actually what was actually happening? And from this perspective where I'm sitting right now, I actually think that's the case. I think it was real, and I think it wasn't fanciful, and I think it was exactly what I'm telling you. And the trick that then what happens is like here you are, this young kid, and you sort of are this like clean slate, right? And then the situations that happen to you as you get older sort of dictate whether or not those things are acceptable or those things are not acceptable, whether those things are valuable, whether those things aren't valuable. Because what do we start to do? We start to look at the people that we're with for input about what we're doing as being valuable. Whereas before, we sort of looked at ourselves at what we thought was valuable, right? But someplace in me, I knew that this wasn't like what everybody else was doing, because I stopped as soon as I heard anybody, ran into my bed. So even at that point, at 5, I already got that information from everyone around me, even though that nobody really said anything, that people don't do this, right? So you wonder, like, when do you start to see that information? So, like, what's interesting is I am a speech pathologist also. So I studied a lot about child development and, like, you know, like when you get information about things. And the interesting thing is that the most valuable information that you get as a child actually happens between birth and 3. And what's interesting about that to me is that in your conscious mind, the one you run around with every day, you actually don't remember specific events that happened during 1 and 3, but those are the things that sort of shaped you. And so for me, I always had this sense of the fact that that information that I got from my mother that I couldn't actually put my finger on, that information that time that I spent with her really was the thing that actually designed me as who I was. And the older I got, the more I really believed that. And to the point that actually at some point I just knew that that was the case. And like when I was growing up with my stepmother, and the more I like rebelled against her and I did all of what I did against her, I sort of knew that the piece that wasn't fitting in, the reason why I wasn't fitting in was because of this other programming that I had from my actual mom, and from the situation of living with her. But the thing about it is that I know from this perspective as being an adult is that you sort of create this own scenario of like what that might have been like. I'll really never know what that relationship will be like. And in all actuality, it's easy to romance what that relationship would have been like, because I don't remember any fighting and I don't remember any rebellion, and I'm sure I would have had all of those things if she would have actually lived. So it's very easy for me to like point to all the bad stuff towards my stepmother, and then like idealize my relationship with my mom because I didn't experience that. But the thing that's really super interesting to me, I think that has to do with intuition, is how do I know that? Like, how do I actually trust that? How can I actually believe that, right? And is it really that simple? So the answer to all of those things are no, it's not that simple. And yes, it is that simple, like both. Because the truth is that if you actually trust your instinct, to the definition of trusting instincts is the ability to shade yourself from the information that's coming from outside, to shade yourself from the judgment that's coming from outside, to actually know that like what you believe and what you think and what you hold in your heart is enough, and that you actually don't need all of that other stuff.
Can we get to that place?
Yeah. And it's like super hard. It's like a walk that you have to take, a step that you have to choose all the time, over and over and over again, because our brain and our body and everything that we are sort of was brought up with this like ability. When you think about it as a baby, what happens, right? You come out and you start crying, and all of a sudden you get this response because you're crying, right? All of a sudden you get attention. Oh, and then you get food. This is kind of cool. Look at all this stuff I can do just by crying. Kind of cool. And if I change my cry, I get different kind of responses. And you start to understand that this is like communication connection that you get to control, right? But very quickly that changes. And it changes because the people that are responding to that cry, to that communication, changes the way they're going to respond. Because at some point, mom, who's on the other side of that crying, is going, you got to be kidding. Like, I just picked you up. I just held you. I just carried you around. Like, you just got to like make do. And so that rejection of not being responded to like takes root. And actually, you don't like it. You really don't want that. So now you're trying to figure out, okay, so now how do I actually get the thing that I want and not get the rejection? Because that rejection thing, the not picking up, the not being held, not so much. Not liking that so much. And then there are other babies who are like, oh, okay, I'll just bring it over here, right? And there's some people who just give up and like decide, all right, so whatever, she'll come when she comes, or it'll happen when it happens, or I'm good right over here. And they sort of don't get tense about it. And then there are other kids who have complete anxiety meltdowns about it, right? And that whole cusp of from one thing to the other thing is in there in childhood development. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is that how do babies know that? How do babies decide to trust their instinct? Like, now's the time for me to cry even though I'm really not hungry. I just want to see what I'm going to do. How do they trust that? How do they just like decide, okay, let me see if this works? Like, where did that come from? It's instinctual, right? It's instinctual. Same way as you could be walking down the street doing your thing, and all of a sudden you make eye contact with somebody. And most of the time when you make eye contact with people down the street, especially if you live in New York, not always such an exciting thing, let me tell you. Try to avoid it at all costs sometimes. But okay, So sometimes you get eye contact and you even get a smile. So much so that one week I decided I was going to try this experiment. I'll suggest it to you guys. Walk around and smile. Actually make eye contact with people and smile. See what you get back. You'd be surprised. Sometimes you get absolutely nothing. People are looking at you like you're out of your mind. Like, oh my God, she needs to be like on drugs because what is she smiling about anyway? Like, life's not really that good, lady. Like, get over it. And other people's will smile right back to you and like even like secretly say something to you, like, you know, like have a good day or nice to meet you. They'll say things to you and you're on the receiving end of all of that love and all of that admiration and all of that joy. Now, the thing is, are you ready to receive it? Are you ready to actually receive all of that information? Because it really blows you away. You can't even believe all these people who you don't know are so willing to just give that out. Just here, have it, take it. Simply because you were the one to give them that smile first. And it's instinctual. It's not something that people think about. It's like that baby. It's just something that happens. People see a smile and they either think you're nuts or they think, oh, how nice, and they smile back. And it's just that simple. And so stepping into your intuition is that simple. It's about the choice to trust that what you actually feel is actually real. And it itself, that trust, is a thing. And in order to be able to actually expand it, to be able to come into a place of expansion of it, and right now is that perfect time, which is why I picked today. It's 11:22. All ones. 11 goes into 2 one time. 1111 is an activation number. And so when you're around and you see 111 and you see it on a license plate, you see it on a receipt, you see it on your clock, you see it on a street sign, you see it on an address, wherever, it is an activation number. And you're saying, I know you're probably thinking, but wait a second, everybody sees that. And I'm going to tell you, when you walk out on the street and you look at a beautiful tree, how many people are walking by that tree and don't see it? And it's the same with that 1111. There are millions of people walking by 1111s all day long and don't see them. But when you do, it is meant for you. And it is an activation number, an expansion number for you with free will to choose to step into the expansion and the activation of your own intuition when you want it. When you want it. And so what I want to try and tell you as a tool is be open to it. Tell yourself, okay, I'm ready to receive that information from the universe about 1111. And just be open to it. Yeah, I can't actually stand there and wait for the clock to turn from 1109 to 1111. It's not the same thing. It's about having it show up. Having it show up on your clock and noticing it and just seeing it like, oh, there it is again. There it is again. And it's another affirmation from the guides and from the universe that the activation within you for your intuition is right there for the taking. It's right there for you. And so when you choose to do that, then you can't judge it. You just have to choose to see it, accept it, acknowledge it, and that's it. And then move on your merry way. Because, yeah.
So I actually see it all the time, like
I'm sure you
almost
do.
every day, multiple times a day. And I've looked it up before as far as meaning of like 1111 or like 1120, but I always used to think that it's some sort of confirmation of what I'm thinking at that moment or what I'm doing at that moment. But how do you work with that? Like, I understand you just said to kind of be open to it and acknowledge it, which I always do. But then I sit afterwards and ask myself, like, what is that trying to tell me at the moment? Like, do you ever ask that question, or how do you, or you think it's enough just to see it and acknowledge it? And
Well, it's interesting. So I know for a fact that 1111 is an activation number, but that I know. But what I also do is, like, when you see 111, which I bet you see that too, that one, I went into my own mind and asked myself, what does that mean to me? What does 111 actually mean to me? And so now every time I see 111, it is a message for what I actually believe 111 stands for. And so what I encourage you to do is the same. Think about it. Like, what does 111 actually mean when I see it? What does it mean? Give yourself a second and think. What do you think?
I mean, I've read, I don't know what I think, but I've read that it's kind of symbolic of like truth and purity.
But I'm not interested in what you read. Because the truth is that if I want to, I can look up the symbolism of everything.
I know.
Including tarot cards.
I mean, my first instinct to what you said, because the 4 wands are actually 4 of the one, and 1 is actually independence and standing on one's kind of own. So it's almost like the quadruple confirmation of kind of be your own person, kind of independence. And
that's what the 4 ones stand for, or the 3?
I'm just saying the 1 period, but when you see 1111, that's like 4 ones, besides the fact that 11 is like a master number as far as inspiration and da-da-da. But like now when you said what symbolism could I take away from it for my own personal meaning, maybe it's important to see kind of that message. It's almost like the 4 knights or the 4 warriors standing together, kind of like saying, like,
you got this.
Stand up and be your own individual, and kind of there's 4 of us kind of go for it.
Yeah.
I just made that up, but I like it.
But I'm going to tell you that when you make it up, when it resonates within you, then you know that that's right. So now whenever you see those 4 ones, it's an activation for what you just said.
I like that. That brings a good feeling to me. I never thought of actually creating my own symbolism out of it.
And the thing about it is that you're not creating your own. It's generated from your soul's expression. I mean, I know people think, oh, I'm just making it up, right?
But that's interesting. Yes, maybe it's trying to reflect back to me in a more kind of conscious way, what's inside, trying to kind of get out.
Exactly. Yeah. So if those 4 ones mean that, then what do 3 mean?
I mean, 3 is a number of communication, so maybe that same.
I don't want to know what your head. I want to know what your heart's telling you. So let's do something. All right, let's close your eyes for a second.
Okay.
Right. And I'm going to invite all my guides in to generate information through us to allow us to find the true meaning of a 111, 111, and what the core of that meaning means to us when we visually come upon it.
I see visual, like right away for some reason, of like a family for some reason, like father, mother, child, like in decline.
So does that mean like family support? Or does that mean, does 111 symbolize like a support system? Like that you've got a support system?
No.
Or does it symbolize
Something,
love?
yeah, like something about like unity or something about like not being alone, a kind of like
Oh, surrounded.
kind of surrounded, connected, like a family
So is
unit.
it, so that's really interesting because I'm gonna tell you,
Okay.
my 111 symbolizes angel's presence. That's mine. Whenever I see 3 1s, to me, it's about being supported by angel's presence.
I mean,
That I'm
interesting that you
on.
said that, because the 3 for me, like when I saw family, like I thought of our family the way it used to be, because it like almost like it was the 3 of us and only the 3 of us. So it was kind of, I don't know, symbolic of my own small
And
family.
right, and the thing is that you may not come upon the answer to what the 3 stands for right in this moment.
Yeah.
And so what I want to say to everybody that's listening is, if you got the answer right now, perfect. And if you don't, sit with it and see what it actually resonates in you. And then when you see those 111s, remind yourself of what that message is and see how it sits in you. See if it warms your heart. And that's sort of like the echo of what the symbolism of that number is. You see it, it echoes back to you information. Because the truth is that we're all seeking tangible evidence from the universe. Like, how do we know we're actually on the right path? How do we know? And so the intriguing thing about intuition is people are very intrigued with intuition because they want information, right? But information doesn't always come in just me telling you something. And information for myself, how do I get information for myself? That blew my mind. Look, what do you mean? And when I realized, well, wait a second, I could get information for me, then it changed the perspective of what actually being psychic was. Having intuition and being able to help the world or heal other people is beautiful. Being able to actually get information and help myself, well, that's amazing. So how does that happen? It's like this, by seeing these numbers, having them give them meaning in your heart, in your soul, for what they actually hold to you. And then every time you see it, that's the universe's way of connecting to you and giving you that information. That you don't need to look in a book, that you don't need to look on the computer.
I have to tell you, and you're not going to believe me, I swear to God, I think something just major shifted for me that I think is going to be totally a game changer for my life. And I'll tell you why. I never even considered looking for the symbolism within. And I've spent my whole life looking to others for either the right answers or the gurus. Even with the symbolism, like whenever something happens, I always go online right away and start reading about the symbolism. Never did I think for a second to actually go within and think, what does that symbolize to me? And I think that's actually huge. That's a huge reframe.
It is a huge reframe because we're so used to looking at the 3D.
It goes to everything, exactly.
You can touch. And it's not just the thing that you can touch, it's back to that baby. oh, wait a second, if I cry like this, I'm not going to get anything. So if I actually want my value to be heard, what I'm feeling to be heard, the value of my cry, to actually have value, think about that. The value of a cry, if you cry as a baby and you're not responded to, it has no value. How fundamental is that?
No,
A baby's cry.
incredible, because as you're saying that, that's my exact thought, that this just returns everything back to you being your own authority versus what we're taught. And I thought I kind of got over it in many places, but look how even in this simple point that still shows up, giving authority to someone else to kind of tell me and guide me what that symbolism means versus what you're saying.
Right. So when the baby finally realizes, oh, I have to change what I'm doing so that I can get the response that I want, he's actually acknowledging and bowing, being submissive to an adult figure saying, oh, that one's valuable. Oh, that cry's valuable. Oh, that sounds valuable, right? So when you're taught this from the very beginning, we're talking days old, right? Now, if you think about it, that baby has been alive for 10 months, really. The male OBGYNs like to tell you it's 9 months because that way when you're pregnant, you don't think it's so long, but it's 10 months. It's 10 months. Anyway, whatever. So for 10 months, this baby was basically on automatic, right? In your body. Peed when it wanted to pee, no problem. Ate when it wanted to eat, no problem. Sucked its thumb, turned its head over, turned around, I don't know, whatever. No clothes, no nothing. Complete, utter freedom, right? Now, all of a sudden, the irony is it gets born, so it can live out of the mother's womb, and that's survive, right? And all of a sudden, all these constraints happen. What happens? Gets a diaper. Where's the food? And wait a second, it's cold. And like, how come nobody's holding me and moving me around? Like, what the hell is going on around here? And not only that, but now if I want any of that, I have to like change what I'm doing to get the thing that I want. Because it's all about communication, right? So you do all of that, and then somewhere at around 2 or 3, kids realize, oh, wait a second, I actually don't have to listen to everything. And that's what they call them, the terrible twos. Because all of a sudden the kids get this inclination that I actually am not attached to my mother, and I can do things that I want to do even if she doesn't want to. Right? And then it happens again. It happens again when you become a teenager, and it happens again when you become later, and it happens again when you become an adult. And the thing about children and parents are, the more children push a parent away, which is absolutely important. The more they push you away, it is because they are on the brink of expanding themselves to be an independent thinker. And you actually can't be this independent thinker when you're constantly looking at them to see if what you're doing is good, is valuable, is right, is this, is that, right? And so, right? So that's—
I'm into that.
Right? Okay, so it doesn't work. But I got news for you. It doesn't work not just with your parent relationship, because that's like the training wheels. It doesn't work in like business. It doesn't work in anything. In marriages, in love relationships, in relationships with friends. When you got somebody bearing down on you, telling you how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to do this, watching out for, you feel like you're being like controlled. Like, what is that?
But it's a pattern that transcends every area of life. And you're right.
It does.
It starts there. Yeah.
And it starts there, and then and so some people want that control. They don't want to think. They don't want to think. They don't want to have to decide. They don't want to have to do any of that stuff. But the question is, are they doing it because they want to be liked? Or are they doing it because they truly don't care? So I can tell you from a person who did it, that half the time I did it because I wanted to be the easygoing one, the one that was easy to be around, the one that was like, oh, it's all good. When really,
Join the club.
that wasn't really always the case. It's all good.
Yeah.
Because what happens when everything's all good is that you loosen the boundaries and allow people to misinterpret the all good for meaning that your voice has no value. And you almost train the people that you're with to believe it.
Absolutely.
That it's true.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were the easygoing person. I didn't know that you had an opinion about that.
Yep.
So people start to just believe that's what you think. And it's the same with people that you take care of in your life. You start to take care of those people in your life and the people around you in your life because your value is coming from taking care of all those other people. Because someplace in your consciousness, in your mind, taking care of you is last on the list because you don't have any value to do that. Why would you do that? Like, you only take care of the things that have value. So taking care of yourself is like a foreign idea, right? So all of these things sort of like spiral around. And the bottom line is that when you start to trust yourself more and more and not rely on those outer voices, not rely on those nods of the head for the things that you actually believe in and the things that you actually know are true, the need for them to be right, or the need for them to be accepted becomes less and less. But there are different levels of them. It can become less and less in your family. It can become less and less with your friends. It can become less and less on a Facebook Live. But there's a wall that you have to sort of break through. The first time that I came out on Facebook and I said I was psychic, it was super hard for me to do that. That was a wall I had to break through. The first time I decided I was going to change my Facebook name from just Robin Pollak Life Coach to Psychic Life Coach. That was a wall I had to break through. So every time you decide to do something, it's that acceptance of self, trust of self, and allowing that judgment from the outside universe to become quieter and quieter and have less meaning. Now, all of us have egos, and so to think that our egos won't be affected by the judgment of others is a ridiculous notion. The trick is, how much will you let it affect you? And so when it comes to like living a life like in business and in coaching, or really pretty much anything in your life, everybody has a way of doing things. And let me just give you an example. So recently I did a talk in Chicago. And so all my well-meaning friends would come to me and they say, oh, so did you do your outline? Are you prepared? Did you get everything you needed? Did you do everything you have to do? Those are the questions that people ask you. And they ask you this because they think they're being what? Helpful, right? Except there's only one little problem. I don't do any of those things. I don't make a list. I don't get really prepared. I have my own version of it. I don't make an outline. I don't have a PowerPoint. I didn't even do one for this. So to trust myself enough to know that works for me. And that's what I actually need to do. Takes a lot of energy, so much so that I have to, I have to really know from every filament in my body that the other way just won't even work for me. And I tried it. I've tried it the other way. I'm like, well, maybe this isn't the right way. Maybe I can do it that way. Never works. It usually creates me to be in like a spin. I get, my flow is all blocked, and I don't have the ability to be as authentic and as prudent. And the truth is, it's scary because I actually don't ever really know. I have an idea of what I know, and I sense an intention of what I want to be talking about, but I actually never really have an idea of what I'm actually saying. Good thing I record these things so I can hear it back because I just don't know. So do you think that you could do that? Could you enter into a conversation without even having like a list? You think you could do that?
One-on-one, possibly, as a talk, not sure.
Right. Which is why a lot of people rely on all of those other things, because it's really a scary proposition to do that. It's really a scary proposition. So that leads me to talk to you a little bit about crystals. So the thing about crystals started like thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And they really began in ancient Rome and ancient Egypt, and people wore them. Like the pharaohs wore them on their headpieces, like right on top of their third eye, different colored ones for different kinds of feelings, for protection, for this, for that, for the other thing. Romans put them in their armor, in their swords even, on their physical armor that they wore on their bodies. Queens wear them in their crowns. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure you've noticed over time, that even Queen Elizabeth, which is really one of the queens that we seem to see a lot, has different colored stones in her crowns. Mm. But the one that she's known for the most are diamonds, correct? So what is a diamond? A diamond is a really high quality clear quartz crystal, right? And the interesting thing about clear quartz crystals like this is clear quartz is supposed to be resented with your crown chakra. Interesting that it's called a crown, don't you think? Mm. And not only that, but it surrounds her crown. Mm. And so when you take a group of crystals and you actually put them in a circle on your hands, even if with one, you can feel the energy. So can you imagine a crown of crystals on your head, the amount of energy that that gives off, because that's what they do. And I'm not just saying this, it's fact. But the fact is that the way crystals are formed is because of a high vibration that a rock got from, I don't know, it could be from an earthquake, it could be from turbulent winds, it could be a drop of temperature, it could be an increase in temperature, but something happens to the composition of the rock in that situation that causes the molecular change of the inside of that rock. Because the outside of the rock looks like this, right? And then you crack it open and what do you get? You get this. So how did that happen? So there are people that think that crystals are galactic and they come from another planet. And I'm not saying they're incorrect, but I personally know that what I just talked about causes the dynamic change of the molecular structure of a rock to form this crystal. Whether it be that it causes water, whether it be that it causes the vibration of the actual stone to cause the change. It could be all of those things, one of those things. And the bottom line is that change it causes energy. And so different rocks do different kinds of things, different crystals do different kinds of things. Some people need not an increase in energy, but a decrease. Some stones bring a calmness, and some stones bring an increase. And it really sort of depends on what you're actually looking for and what you're actually needing. And so you can read all about these different kinds of crystals. I'm going to be sending everybody a PowerPoint who attends this with a little bit of information. And I'll do another masterclass a little bit more to talk about the different classes of crystals. But I just wanted you to see, like, this is another one. And so I tend to gravitate to these things that look like a triangle, as you can see. They speak to me. But I also like to look at the formation of the inside of it. Like, I love the way this looks. It just, it shows me the actual energy within the stone. To me, that's really compelling. But it's about holding the stone. This stone, this pink stone, rose quartz, is a very healing kind of stone. So this stone is warm. This is amethyst. It's a healing stone also. But this stone brings heat. This stone brings coolness. And I have lots of different ones. And also, this is a raw rose quartz crystal. The top is polished, but the bottom over here, this part is raw. And for me, I actually really love that it's raw, because it's a very grounding kind of thing. When I hold it in the palm of my hand, it feels very grounding. So to me, this piece, I feel heat from, and this piece where my fingers are is cool. So, and they do different things for you. They say different things about you. They cause different kinds of things. And as you know, I wear a lot of bracelets. And the way I pick them is the way I pretty much do everything else. When I started like thinking like, okay, so what does this one say? And what does this one say? And what does that one say? And what do I need? I was in that space also, that very like 3D. What is this one telling me? What is that one telling me? And then eventually I got to this space of just picking them up and feeling them and saying, oh, you know, I sort of like the way this one feels. And then saying, huh, and then reading it. So I challenge you, when you're out and shopping, when you're out walking around and you see all these different kinds of beads, first thing you should know is that they're not high quality beads and they're just glass, you're gonna feel nothing. So it's not you that you're turned off, it's that the stones are made from crap. They're glass. They're not real stones. They're not real beads. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is that if it's cool, that doesn't mean that it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's if it resonates with you. So feel it first, see what resonates, then read what it does. I'm just going to challenge you, play a little game. And a lot of this stuff is like that. You just play a little game. You're playing a little game with the universe of what the messages are for you. And if you think about it, like those 111s that we were talking about before, it's interesting what you're attracted to. And maybe what you're attracted to is your guides telling you what you actually need. And if you think about it like that, you're actually responding to the information that's your gut instinct. And that gut instinct is coming from up on high. So when you think about that, you're actually in a place of receiving. Just saying. And whenever you fight your gut instinct and you do the opposite of what you really wanted to do, does it usually work out? No. And even as something as simple as going into a store and ordering a sandwich and you really wanted, let's just say, a fresh tomato sandwich, a fresh mozzarella sandwich with roasted peppers and olive oil. Let's just say that's what you wanted. And you're like, oh, I really shouldn't have that. It's too much fat and bread. Like, I really shouldn't be eating this. And so you go, I'm just going to have a salad. So you eat the salad and you feel like you're eating, I don't know, cement. It doesn't really taste great. It doesn't really feel great. I don't know. And the whole day you're sort of thinking about that mozzarella, and either you break down, you finally have it for dinner and feel satisfied, or it's like haunting you. So generally speaking, I believe that intuitively that your body's sort of telling you that you need that you need those calories, you need that fat content, that you want it. And if you can't have it, like for me, I can't eat mozzarella cheese, I can eat fresh mozzarella, just not regular mozzarella, whatever. You don't need to know my dietary problems. But anyway, I might get a craving for something, and then I'm like, okay, well, I really shouldn't have it because my stomach's going to go, what's a better translation of that? And I'll find something else. So let me talk to you a little bit more about these crystals. So when you get crystals, and a lot of people are really concerned about cleansing crystals. A lot of talk about, how do I cleanse my crystals? Personally, I don't wash my crystals because I find that some crystals are very water soluble and they'll disintegrate. So I don't recommend washing them. That's the first thing. I don't really put them in the sunlight because amethyst, for example, will fade in the sunlight. Some people, if I did anything, I would put them in the moonlight. But personally, what I do is this. I put my hands together. I rub them. I bring them out, and I start to feel the energy. So if you're listening to this, try it. Rub your hands together. And then just hold them together. And now bring them out. Slow. And stay there. And do you feel a pull between your two hands?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Energy that you have. And so when I want to reactivate my crystals, I actually just put my hand. I don't know what happened. And I take my hand and I actually just put it over the crystals and I reactivate the crystals. And that's how I do it. I really find that that's much better. And I also find that then I get a more significant connection to the crystals that are connected to me. And I find that I don't think so much about which crystals work and which crystals don't. I sort of just go with the ones that intrigue me. So before we go, I just want to pull a card. And I want to just thank you all for showing up. And you all are invited to do a quick session if you haven't ever spoken to me, or if you just want to get a quick session with me for a quick card pull. I think you got it. You're going to be getting it in an email. So I invite you to do that and take advantage of that. And just before I go, I'm going to do a quick card pull for us. And this is from my Divine Feminine deck. And you don't have to be feminine to appreciate this deck. Divine Feminine is something that we all have, and Divine Masculine. Divine Feminine is about receiving, and Divine Masculine is about doing. Not that one's better than the other. It's a good balance to have both. So I use my left hand when I pull because my left hand is connected to my heart. And that's how I do it. And just like with other things, I feel an automatic pull, and I just pick that card. Before, when I used to pull tarot, I used to have to lay them out on a table, flat, each card flat, and then run my hand over all the cards and pull them that way. And then one day I just decided that I actually don't need to do that. I could do it this other way. Let's see. And I did, and it was successful. And that's what I mean about trusting. Sometimes you just have to trust yourself to try something out a new way. And the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't really work, right? Okay, so this card is Kali, very colorful. And I'm just looking at it, and she basically is the mother of the universe. And it's an interesting card to get. For us, it's about releasing what does not serve you, letting it go. And it's all about, I can't even make this up. It's about the truth of who you are, releasing what doesn't serve you, and exposing the truth of who you are. I know you might have thought that I positioned that card a certain way, but I really didn't. And I think that's very significant for this conversation. So I just want to thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.